everyone, and welcome to our study on the women in the Bible. I hope you enjoyed last week's study on Tamar, and this week we are studying the life and story of Rahab. Now Rahab, we know, was a prostitute, and we find her story in the book of Joshua. And Joshua was the leader who followed Moses, who led the people Israel into the promised land. But in doing so, they had to be very obedient to the Lord and follow his commands every step of the way. But every time as they were obedient to the Lord gave them victory over the armies that they had to conquer in order to take possession of the promised land. But because of this, the stories of Israel and of Joshua reached the ears of the people of Jericho long before they actually crossed the Jordan to take the land. So by the time Joshua and the Israelites crossed the Jordan, the people of Jericho had already heard of this God who fights for his people, and this God who, leads his people. And it was something that was unheard of. And Rahab, a prostitute in Jericho, heard of this God who fights for his people, and she thought, this is a God that I want to worship. This is a God worth believing in. Now, Rahab's story to us is very encouraging, because Rahab was a prostitute, but she was probably a prostitute out of necessity. So you must understand something from in the ancient cultures. Fathers often sold their daughters into prostitution if they had financial difficulties. And we can't know this for certain, but this might have been Rahab's fate. What happened when the men who bought these girls were finished with them, they would basically send them back to their father's house in shame. And that woman would be unmarriageable for the rest of her life. So many of these women resorted to prostitution as a means to care for themselves. And we saw in Tamar's story that there were two types of prostitutes in those days. The one type were private prostitutes and the other were temple prostitutes. The chances are that Rahab probably fell into the second category, and that she was a temple prostitute. And they were also more respected than the private prostitutes. But what we can know from her story, and why I think she might have been a temple prostitute, is because we also know that some high officials from Jericho were some of Rahab's clients. See, but Rahab, because of her situation and because of the necessity of having to be a prostitute, was searching for rescue. And she saw in our Lord and God, who led his people to victory, a God who would also perhaps take mercy on her and save her. And she wanted to be part of his people. And I think that desire in her led the spies of Israel right into her door. I think the Lord orchestrated it so that they would meet this woman and that she would be rescued, and not only rescued but lifted up as a woman who is part of the lineage of Jesus. And this once again is where we see Jesus emerge. Jesus' grace and Jesus' mercy emerge. To me, in Rahab's story, I see the fact that Jesus doesn't look at our outside appearances or where we come from or what we've done in our lives. He looks at our hearts. And when we have hearts that are truly seeking rescue, that are truly seeking redemption, he finds us. And he causes us to find him. So that was an encouraging thing for me of Rahab's story, is to know that Jesus will find me when I need him the most. I pray that you will also turn to Jesus this week, and through Rahab's story be encouraged to go to him and to seek him no matter what sin is in your life and no matter what you have had to deal with in the past. Be encouraged. Goodbye.